this weekend, so we're getting used to it. But we'll be ready to begin in about 2 to 3 minutes. For those of you that I can actually see on the Zoom call while we're getting all the YouTube set up, how are you all today? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Wonderful. I see you there, Mentor. I see Arun's there. This is fantastic.
I'm superb, Mike.
How are you, Arun?
I'm fantastic, and it's Monday morning. Can't complain. I'm motivated to do some more architecture stuff this week.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah, so we'll do some great things for you guys. Typically speaking, in my experience, people typically show up in between 3 to 6 minutes after the hour. So we're going to wait approximately 3 more minutes. We expect today will be a moderately slow day because it's becoming a holiday week inside of the US. But we know from experience our people join all around the world and they're typically a few minutes late. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all of you that are actually being here. So to let everybody know, in the next week, we are going to be coming on live, assuming all the technology worked great, with a lot more technology training that'll be completely free on YouTube. I'll be bringing in industry experts, and we're going to talk about things to improve your chances of not only getting hired, to improve your overall knowledge base about things going on the cloud. We'll be bringing in a lot more networking specialists, a lot more data center specialists, since the cloud is just the network and the data center that's been virtualized. And we're super excited to do it. The reason we're a little bit slow in our systems is we've set up this nice 32-core system with a 0.5 terabyte of RAM, along with some NVIDIA Quadro cards, and we're going to be broadcasting on a lot of different channels when we do this. We bought special 6K cameras. Not sure how we're going to be able to stream that, or we're going to have to reduce it down to, but we're really excited and looking forward to this, and that's coming soon. So for those of you that are on YouTube, I see Cloud Architect Staffing in North Carolina. I know you guys are really great. TechOx is eagerly waiting. What's going to work today, the way we're going to do this is as follows. I will present for about 1 hour. And then after I present, I'll talk about what we do for about 3 to 5 minutes. And then after that, what we'll do is we'll answer anybody's questions, whether they're coming from YouTube, whether they're coming from Zoom. And we'll also give people on YouTube the opportunity to hop on to Zoom to ask questions actually in person if they desire, or they can still ask the questions as they desire, sitting on Zoom in the chat box. So anything we can do to basically help everybody get any questions answered. So is everybody ready to begin in about a minute or two? If you're on YouTube, let me know. And if you're on Zoom, this is great too. Just let me know in either a comment box or a chat box. So now that we've got a lot of people that are popping on both medias, I guess we're going to begin. Today, what we're going to talk about is how to get your first cloud architect job, or any cloud job actually as well at the same time. We want you to have all the knowledge of exactly what it takes to get hired, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So anytime you actually listen to people speak, you really need to know, who is the source? What is the source background? Are they credible? So I'll tell you a little bit about my background, and then you can make those decisions for yourself. So I have been working in tech for well over 25 years now. My first tech job was technically 1993, but I don't really like to talk about that. I will say that my first tech job was actually around 1999 to 2000 when I started doing really heavy big tech. But prior to that, I was still working in tech. Now, in these 25 years plus that I've worked in tech, I have been really lucky. I've worked at Cisco for almost a decade. I worked at Riverstone Networks, the old Cabletron, the service provider division, and that was really wonderful. I got to be the lead architect for the backbone at Comcast for the short time that I was there. And I was actually the lead architect on my team at MCI WorldCom, which is now Verizon 20-some years ago. Guess what? That was the largest internet service provider in the world. So that was some great times. And I've been very lucky to work for some truly great companies over the years. Now, during these years, I've worked as a subject matter expert in global network design, cloud computing, and information security. And I've been teaching or coaching or mentoring others to get their first tech job or get promoted in tech for over 2 decades now. And it's something I absolutely love. So that's a little bit about my background. The agenda for the discussion today is, first and foremost, we're going to talk about how we created the Get Your First Tech Job method. Then we'll talk about why it works and how it can help you. Then we'll talk about leveraging your current skills, because we all have skills. Then we're going to tell you exactly what the hiring manager wants, so you can be the hiring manager's dream hire and get hired. Then we'll talk about building a resume that sells. We'll talk about how to get your resume in the hands of the hiring manager. We'll talk about expanding your professional network, and then we'll do some group coaching. So this is going to be an event-filled learning. So, it's going to be a busy hour and 15 minutes, and then we'll answer any questions you desire. So that's the formula. Now, you wouldn't think that architects that have been working in the technology world for 25 years would be talking about how to get your first job. But this is an area that I've focused on for literally decades. And the reason I did started out with me. See, many years ago, I wanted to work in tech, or I should say I desired to work in tech, and my wife told me to work in tech. What ultimately happened in my life is I love tech. And I was practicing internal medicine. I was a nurse practitioner. I had my own office, doing everything. I loved it. And what would happen is I'd leave my house at 7. I'd work until 5 or 6 p.m. at night. And then when I got home, it was hobby time. Hobby time meant, I had a house full of servers, a house full of routers and switches. I was tinkering. I was building. I was literally back in 1997 spending about $30,000 a year on technology, because it was my hobby and I just liked building networks. I loved it. In fact, I liked it so much that my wife, one day when I got home from work at like 7 o'clock, and my wife says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going to go play with my tech." And she says, "Why don't you just work in tech already?" She's like, "You spent nearly $100,000 in the last 3 years buying tech just to explore. Instead of spending our money, why don't you get paid to do this?" When that light bulb moment went off, it was like, wow, that's a great idea. Now, my wife has 170 IQ, learned Spanish in 10 days because her translators couldn't even necessarily understand her thoughts. So when I hear someone like that say those things, I'm like, yep, I'm working in tech. So what did I do? I thought this transition to tech was going to be simple. So I had heard that Microsoft certified systems engineers were in demand on the way to networking. So I took this 5-day, $5,000 boot camp. 5 days later, I had passed all the MCSE exams, and I was now an MCSE. And guess what that gave me in terms of job opportunity? Nothing. So I had then heard that, "Mike, you're really the networking guy. Get network certified." So that made sense to me. So I locked myself in a room for 4 days. I became a CCNA, and I was certified, but it didn't mean much in those days. And then split it, and that CCA still doesn't mean enough on its own, but I'll tell you what did, or what I thought would have. So I knew that associate certs weren't enough, and I'll just get a professional one. So I took this 10-day, $11,000 CCNP boot camp. Wow, it was like 16 hours a day, and it was fun. We did so much tech, and at the end of those 10 days and $11,000, I was CCNP certified. Now I figured I was onto something. But I knew I was a non-traditional candidate because, I was a medical guy moving into networking. So I said, let's get some more certs. So I took the Cisco Certified Design Associate. Then I took the Cisco Certified Design Professional. Now I was armed. Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer, professional level certification. Cisco Certified Network Professional certification. Cisco Certified Design Professional, professional architect certification. I'm getting hired, right? Well, I applied for 5 jobs as a test, and I got 5 rejections. Rejected. Now, the world was simpler in those days. We were less busy. And 2 people actually called me back. And they said, "Mike, I wish I could hire you." They said, "How often do you get a medical professional that wants to detect that it's their passion?" They said, "But you have no degrees in tech, no experience. I can't sell you to my management team." And I said, "I understand." Now, I know the definition of insanity is to do the same thing again, and expect a different return. That's crazy. So if I kept getting told no, change your tactic, adapt, improvise, and overcome. So I wasn't sure what to do. So that night I go to the gym. It's my happy place. I've always been in the gym. I'm in the gym. I run into a buddy of mine that I know has a really successful tech career. And he asked me, he's like, "Hey, Mike, how's the job search going?" And I said, "Horrible, absolutely horrible." I said, "I applied for 5 jobs and I got rejected from everybody." And he said, "Well, you're not like applying for them, are you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Why would you do that?" I said, "How else do you get a job?" And he said, "Michael," he said, "that's great if you've got 20 years experience." He said, "But you have no experience." And he said, "All your degrees are in healthcare. How are you going to do that?" He said, "I need to get you directly in front of a hiring manager." He said, "Yeah, how are you going to do that?" And he said, use a recruiter. And he told me what would happen and why it would happen. So I was like, great idea. So what did I do? I called that first recruiter, just like my tech-oriented friend told me to do. I was pretty excited. Why? Because the recruiter spent 45 minutes on the phone with me and he said, look, here's what you need to do to get hired. He said, you're here and employers want this. And he said, you're just not there. He said, you seem highly educated. You're very well spoken. You present yourself well. He said, you're going to have a great tech career, but you need to fix these things and you'll get hired. And I was really excited. But before I went down a rabbit hole and started spending the next 6 months, 3 months, whatever it was, learning something, I wanted to know if it was right. So what did I do? I called another recruiter and another recruiter and another recruiter. And after speaking to about 50 recruiters who all told me the same thing, I had a master list of things. Now I sent really nice gifts to every recruiter because they basically changed my life. So the recruiters told me exactly what was necessary to get hired. I did a gap analysis between my current skill sets versus what hiring managers wanted. And then I built a plan to get there. And 2 months later, I was hired. So I created this for me to transition between careers. And you know what? It's worked for so many other people. Here's what happened on this. I finally go on my first tech job. And I'll tell you why this worked later. And I'm interviewed by this guy, Devendra, and he asks me a behavioral question. It was an honest one. And I answered it. He asked me a technical question and I answered it. He asked me another technical question and I answered it. Then what happened was Devendra asked me a technical question that I had no idea. And being unlike everybody else, I decided to be honest. And I said, Devendra, I'm sorry I've not had the opportunity to learn that yet. And I said, actually, I said, today's Monday at 11 or 11:30. I said, last Friday at 6:30, I was still rounding all my patients in the hospital and seeing patients. I said, this is my first tech interview ever, and I'm honored to be here with you. I said, but I need to be honest. I've not had a chance to work with this. I said, I know this, I know this, I know this. I said, and I'm highly motivated, energetic, enthusiastic, and passionate. I love tech so much so that this is what I've done. I said, but I need to be honest with you. This is not something that I know. But if I was given this job and it was part of the job, I would learn it as soon as possible. Now, I was expecting to be sent home. Instead, Devendra puts his hand out, shakes my hand, and he says, you're hired. And I went, okay, this is great. And he said, but there's a problem. He said, you applied to be a network engineer. And I said, yes. He said, you're already too good for that job. And I looked at him like I had four heads. And I was excited, but I looked at him and he said, Mike, you don't get it. He said, look, everybody I interview lies to me. And he said, and the people that don't lie to me, they don't know anything. He said, you already knew as much as half of my people do, and you've never even worked. What's going to happen in 6 months? He said, if I don't make you a senior network engineer, you will leave in the first 3 months. Well, 6 months later, I was the lead architect on the team, not even a senior engineer anymore. And what an experience it was. So I learned so much through that process, and I've used the same process for decades now to help people find their first tech jobs or get promoted in tech. Same system. Now, there are a lot of tenets of my system and a lot of principles. Some are related to basically, for example, making you look more attractive to the employer. Some of them are actually related to being exactly what the employer needs. Some of them are related to tuning your resume. But guess what? The first and most important of the system is there is no such thing as no experience. Nothing. No such thing as no experience. This is the worst, most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. There's not a single person out there that doesn't have some experience that would make them a better cloud architect, cloud engineer, or any career they desire, provided they understand the job they desire and they understand the experience they have and it's related to their current job and they can show that to the hiring manager. I'll give you some examples from my background, things that you would think are unrelated to architecture, but made me a better architect that I've used to convince employers. So I'm going to tell you a few things. One was my childhood hobby, which is martial arts, which I've done my entire life until I shot out my foot. The next is actually working in medicine. And I'm going to show you how those two things made me a better architect. And I'm going to then show you at the end, if you guys ask questions, I will pick up anything from your background and show you how it'll make you a better cloud architect. Know that that matters, but you have to be able to explain it to the hiring manager, not HR, the hiring manager. So let's begin with martial arts, because you wouldn't think that's at all related to a cloud architect, right? Well, guess what? It helped me. So in martial arts, you learn a lot of lessons. Some of the lessons are as follows. You must be calm at martial arts at all times. I mean, really calm at all times. Now, you'd think martial artists, big, aggressive people. Look, we're trained to fight, but we are calm. See, we're in a martial arts sparring or a competition. We're here, we're moving around. Something comes at us, we're calm, we move it out of the way. Life is easy. The second we get uncalm, the second we lose focus, we're not moving a quarter of an inch. We're getting hit, and we're getting hit, we're getting knocked out. So why is that? See, what happens when we are relaxed, we're using our prefrontal cortexes, we're thinking, we're moving, we have logical reasoning, and all is good. When we get stressed or we lose our focus, bad things happen. So first, martial arts taught me to have focus. Find the end goal and work 100% of everything you do towards achieving that end goal. I promise you, if you have that same focus for your career, no one will ever be able to stop you. Your career will be like a rocket ship and you'll be able to achieve anything. Find that goal and focus 100% of your energies on getting that goal. That applies to a big architecture. That applies to becoming a cloud architect. That applies to being an Olympian. It doesn't matter. Focus all your time, effort, and everything you do into being great at that one thing, and you'll be great at that one thing. I learned that from martial arts. It applied to medicine. It applied to architecture too. Now, that losing your calmness and not getting angry. Wow, I learned that from martial arts, because not only if you get angry do you get knocked out, but it's worse than that. When you get uncalm or you get angry, this beautiful prefrontal cortex that we're talking about, the thing that we're talking to each other right now, it shuts down. And when the prefrontal cortex shuts down, this nasty amygdala part of the brain activates. That's responsible for freeze or fight or flight. Now, if you have to wrestle a crocodile, it's great for your amygdala to be there. But if you need to solve a problem like an architecture, you can't do it. So you need that prefrontal cortex. And that's why you need to stay calm. See, warriors know this, and that's why they train to be calm, because if they lose their calm, they lose their skill. So while that's helpful for a layperson in an emergency to have a little adrenaline, it is unhelpful for you and your careers. So keep your prefrontal cortex activated. And I learned this from martial arts. Now, you know what else I learned in martial arts? Military strategy, which guess what is business strategy and architecture strategy. So you want to get a job as a cloud architect, prepare for battle. I'll tell you the statistics later, and we can easily help people find jobs. But at a low performance company like the cable company, it's 3,000 applicants for a single job. At a good company, it's about 5,000 applicants for a single job. So you want to win, you want to rise to the top, have that laser-like focus and follow what Sun Tzu, spelled Sun TSU, said in The Art of War. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you'll always be victorious. What does that mean? Know yourself, your strengths and weaknesses, and bring them up to excellence. Know what the hiring manager wants and be what they want, and you'll win every time. You'll get hired every time. Same thing. Know what the hiring manager wants. Know your strengths, know what the competition is for the same job, be better than them in every way, or at least some critical ways. And again, you'll win. Now, if you know yourself, but not your enemy or the hiring manager, it's going to be luck. For every one win, there'll be one loss. And if you know the hiring manager, but not yourself, again, for every win, there'll be one loss. But don't know yourself and don't know your enemy, and you will always lose. So if you want to be victorious, know yourself, know your enemy. That's why we're going to spend so much time talking about what does the hiring manager want. They are your people that you're going to be fighting with to get hired. So win, win, win. So that's why we're going to talk about that. Now, one thing I also learned in martial arts, very common for Marines as well as other soldiers, is to adapt, improvise, and overcome. Architecture is not a place for rigid people that are basically, it has to be this way, this way, this way, this way, or this way. It will never work. Look, we architects have principles and ideas and guides, but guess what? Things happen. There's a government regulation that makes you choose some suboptimal architecture, and you have to contend with it. There is an application written by someone that's no longer alive that you have to have, because you know what? Things depend on it. So there's always something that you're going to have to deal with, a budget problem. So you're going to have to learn to adapt, improvise, and overcome. So want to be a great architect? Here's what I learned from martial arts: to be focused, to be calm, to respect others, to know yourself and know your enemy, to build a plan, to build a backup plan. And when all else fails, adapt, improvise, overcome. Guess what? You do that as an architect, you will be a highly successful architect. These life lessons are not just one thing to remember. They are valid for your whole life. Now, guess what else matters? When I worked in medicine, that was my, my first big job. That's how I learned how to become an architect. Yes, that's right. You heard me. I said, when I went into medicine, I learned how to become an architect. So what do I mean by that? Well, first and foremost, I learned the following. 3 things. The first one is related to depth of knowledge. The second thing is actually related to how to design end-to-end systems. Medicine end-to-end system designs. Okay, here's the first part that I actually learned. And it is so, so, so important. I learned in medicine that you need to be an expert in something. See, this concept of the 10x AWS certified shows me a person that's got 10 certification that absolutely is nothing about anything and they're 100% unhireable. Look at it this way, in medicine, do you know what it takes to be a cardiologist or anything that matters? And let's just say this, a cardiologist is a doctor that works on the heart. There are more than 10 kinds of doctors that work on the heart, and the heart is the same size as my human fist. So 10 kinds of doctors. So here's what it takes to be somebody that works on the heart. 4 years of training undergraduate to learn the fundamentals, 4 years in medical school to basically learn the fundamentals of medicine, then a 3-year internship/residency, basically, well, actually 4, because an internship and 3 years, an internship and then a residency. And then when you're done, if you want to be a specialist, you got to do a fellowship. So 17 years of school to entry-level practice. And remember, there's 10 different kinds of doctors for something the size of my heart. So we're talking 170 years just to begin entry-level practice for these folks. Entry-level practice. So just to deal with the heart, you're dealing with 10 people and 170 years of training. Now, guess what? When it comes to networking or tech, I spent over 10,000 hours just doing BGP before I started to even understand it. In tech, don't get wide and know a little bit about a lot of things. The jack of all trades is not hireable. And when you finally do hire the jack of all trades, their salary is low because they don't have enough depth to do anything right. They're just basically hands here, here, and there. And they're valuable to have on your team. But if you want to actually get a job and a good job, you got to be great at something. So what I learned first from medicine is deep knowledge, not general knowledge. A neurosurgeon gets paid a couple $1 million a year. A generalist family practitioner gets $150,000 a year. It's just as hard to be the generalist as it is the $2 million a year neurosurgeon. Who do you want to be? And it's always up to you. So I prefer the specialist path, and I've taken that from my career, and most of the people that I've coached to be successful throughout the last 2 decades have taken a specialist path. It differentiates them and it makes them better. Now, the next part of architecture that I learned from practicing medicine was how to be an architect. I said it, that's right. Medicine, architecture, consulting, architecture, it's the same job, completely. The only thing is it changes is what you're actually architecting. So here is the process in medicine. Patient comes into the office. My back hurts. What do I do as a doctor? I say, tell me about your back pain. What makes it better? What makes it worse, etc. Meaning I asked questions. Then what do? I examine the patient. I put my thumbs on his back. I start moving around things. Maybe I order an x-ray. Then I make a diagnosis, and then I make a plan. Maybe the plan is physical therapy. Maybe the plan is a prescription. I meet with them. I ask questions. I make an assessment, and I make a plan. Now, what is the job of the cloud architect? Go interview those executives of the client. Go ask them, what do you need? What are your business goals? What are you trying to achieve? What are your competitors doing? Then, after asking the strategy or the problem or the goal, then what do? I start asking questions of the staff. I start looking at the systems. I start assessing all the technology systems. I generate my hypothesis, just like in medicine, and then I build a plan, and it's called an architecture. So, what is the job of the architect and the doctor? Architect, meet with the client. Doctor, meet with the patient. Architect, ask some questions. Doctor, ask some questions. Architect, baseline the current systems and see what kind of technology is involved. Architecture, assess your patient. Medicine, assess your patient. Architecture, design an end-to-end system. Medicine, prescribe a treatment plan to make the patient better. Same job, literally 100% the same job. And you know what? When I worked in management consulting, it was the same job. And when I first started working in tech, people were like, why are you so good at this? Why are you so calm? Why are you relaxed? And I said, well, in tech, nobody's going to die for the most part. And guess what? It's no different than what I've done in medicine for the last forever. So you want one job, make your old job the same as your new job. And I can show you how to do this in the question and answer session if you desire. So how did I get my first cloud architect job? Going back to it and how it applies to you. I asked 50 recruiters, what is the ideal goal and ideal candidate? Now, granted, when I did this, I sent out 45 gifts. There were 50 gifts that were each about $50. So I spent about $2,500 in the process, but it was worth it because it got me hired and it's helped my clients for decades. The next thing I did is once I knew what everybody wanted, I said, if this is what the hiring manager wants, and this is what I am, what do I have to do to get hired? I did gap analysis and I got there. I went on my first interview and I got hired instantly. In fact, I've interviewed with 5 companies in my life and every single one has hired me. I've never interviewed for a company that I didn't get hired for. Why? Because I knew what the hiring manager wanted and I became what the hiring manager desired. And that's my recommendation for all of you. So let's talk about what that is for reasons. So what is it that a hiring manager truly, truly desires? I'm going to tell you right now. Be the product you want and they will purchase you. My wife buys shoes. I don't completely understand it. She's got over 300 pairs of shoes. She just loves them. She comes home one day and buys shoes. And I said, okay, why do you buy shoes? Because she says, I like them. I said, is anything else go into your decision? She said, what I like, what looks good, what feels good on my feet. And I said, okay. And she says, how do you buy tech? How do you buy this? I said, I buy what I want, what I like. And she said, yes, 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 same process. So guess what? Hiring managers hire what they like. People buy what they like. When we interview for a job, effectively, we're the product. So let's be what they desire. Let's package that product beautifully. So what does the hiring manager want? First and foremost, technical competency, the ability to do the job. If you can't do the job, for the most part, they can't hire you. Now, I want to make sure you understand the difference between experience and technical competency. Experience means you've just been doing something. And guess what? Have you ever seen somebody that's been driving for 20 years drive poorly and actually cause accidents? Have you ever seen someone that's been working at a hotel for 2 decades do something stupid? I have. Have you ever seen a waiter or waitress, food server that's got a 50 years of experience and can't remember something that's on a table? Of course you can. And have you ever seen a doctor with 30 years experience that's terrible? I've seen many. Experience just means you've been doing something for a while. It doesn't mean whether you're competent. It has nothing to do with it. Competency means your excellence at doing the job. Hiring managers want competent people, not experience. HR people look for experience. We're going to talk about how to skip HR and we'll talk about why they look for experience. Hiring managers want capability. Now, if we hiring managers interview someone, meaning we brought them in for an interview, it means we thought they could do the job. That's why we brought them in. We're too busy to interview them. And if someone can't do the job after interviewing them, it's much easier to say, sorry, you don't have experience, other than you're incompetent. So that's the whole myth versus experience versus actual competency. You must be competent. Now, what is the next most important thing that an employer cares about? Someone that you can trust. As a hiring manager, I need people that I can trust. Now, guess what? I've interviewed over 5,000 people in my career. Over 5,000. Do you know how many people that have lied to me on that interview? Over 4,950. In fact, I had a little list. I used to write a check mark down with a name every time someone didn't lie to me, just because it was so rare. And I had a list for a period of time that would say, call this person back if I can find a job for them somewhere else, and or call this person back if I have another job that would be useful for their skill set. So I actually wrote down the ones that didn't lie to me. So here's what happens on interviews. I ask a question to an answer that I know. I'm not stupid enough to ask a question to the answer I don't know, because then someone's going to lie to me. So if I ask someone, tell me about how this works, and someone bluffs to me, they basically lied to me. Now, I can't trust someone that lied to me. So the rest of the meeting is nice and polite. I may offer the person some cookies to send them home in a happy way. But once they lie to me, it is over. Done. And guess what it is for most hiring managers? So what do we hiring managers want? First and foremost, the ability to do the job, and 2, someone we can trust. So don't be one of those 99% of the population that lies on your job interview. Just don't do it at all. Instead, tell the hiring manager, I'm sorry, I've not had the opportunity to learn this yet, but I'm highly motivated. I'm energetic, I'm enthusiastic, and I love technology. If this was important, I would learn it very quickly. I know what I know and I know what I don't know, and I can find the answers to things quickly. And if you want to gauge my technical competency, I know a lot about X, Y, and Z. Take control of the interview and point them to what you know. That's what my students do. And that's what I've always done. And that's why I've never been on an interview where I didn't get hired. Point them to the things you know, but be honest. Prove that to them, and automatically the employer is going to love you. Now, what is the next thing that employers care about? It's your competency or your safety. So what do I mean by safe? Do you know what you know? And do you know what you don't know? That's a good trait in a doctor. For example, a podiatrist that knows feet, we don't want him operating on someone's brain. Likewise, if you're a cloud network architect and they want you to do a database thing and you don't know, don't do it. Tell someone you don't know. Get help. It's totally fine. But do something that you don't know, cause $100 million outage or $1 billion company to go bankrupt, and you are done forever. And you've cost thousands of people their jobs, and you've done a lot of damage. So what do hiring managers want? Someone they can do the job, someone they can trust, and someone that's safe, meaning knows what they know and knows what they don't know. Now, the next traits that hiring managers want are as follows, and don't not neglect these traits. Because when we interview people, 50% of your interview score is technical competency. And the other 50% is related to these intangible factors. And when you have no experience and it's your first job, you must be great at the intangibles, because you're not going to be great enough at the tech. We can get you good enough at the tech to be hired, but good enough and 30 years of experience doing it right are very different. But if I can get your tech just good enough, meaning 40 out of 50 or 35 out of 50, and I can get your soft skills to 50 out of 50, you outrank people in most cases that have 30 years experience, and you'll still get hired. So what are those next traits that people love so much? I'm going to tell you this. They want someone that's energetic and enthusiastic that loves tech. If you love it, you're going to be good at it. You're going to learn about it. You're going to have that laser-like focus we talk about. And if you don't like it, you're not going to learn, because you're going to be bored. So do that. Now, besides that, would you want to hire this person and just pay them to do that? Or do you want to hire someone that's excited, that wants to be there? That's what I want, someone that loves it. Now, what else do employers want? They want people that are strongly emotionally intelligent. Here's why. And emotional intelligence has a bigger factor on your salary and long-term career than anything else. Emotionally intelligent people bring out the best in others. Emotionally intelligent raise the energy of the room. Here, you know it. You know there's somebody that's toxic to be around. They walk in the room and they make everybody miserable. That's death to an organization. By comparison, the happy, bubbly person that comes in, hi, everybody. Oh, how can I help you? Oh, you need a little help? Let me show you. Anything we need to do to get you where you need to go. These are the people that basically, for example, help you do great things. So organizations want people that can raise the energy in the room, take care of others. These are the kinds of things that we're actually looking for. So be those things and you will do a great job getting hired. So the next thing, what else do organizations look for? They look for team players. Somehow, these cloud certification providers have tried to convince people they need to be an expert on everything. Now, I'm also going to tell you, I've interviewed 1,000 of these people that thought they could be an expert on anything, and I couldn't hire a single one. And they all had multiple AWS certified. I couldn't hire a single one because the skill wasn't there. So here's what an architecture team looks like. You're going to have a cloud infrastructure architect or a cloud network architect like me on the team. Then you're going to have a couple of generalist cloud architects on the team. Then you're going to have a cloud security architect like me, someone that's been a cloud architect that also has a big security background. I've done that on the networking side. Okay, then you're going to have a cloud IAM architect, and IAM and security are two different things. You may have some cloud database architects, which are cloud architects that focus on databases on your team. Cloud big data architects, you may have some machine learning people on your team, some data scientists on your team. And guess what? You're going to have some cloud engineers to build the stuff that you design and help you with the deeper engineering things. You may have some DevOps people to help automate some of the software release things. Again, it's a totally different career. So a team's going to have people from all over the world and all different skill sets. And that's why you need to be great. So organizations want team players. Now, there's one other thing that organizations desire. Now, I got to tell you, This last thing is so important. Make sure it's obvious when the employer hires you, and it's obvious on your resume. Employers want someone that's willing to go above and beyond. But let's face it, if you're the employer or the hiring manager, you need to know that if there's a network outage at 3 o'clock in the morning that's taking the cloud down, your architects are willing to get up and jump on a call. Now, it's not going to happen that often, but the knowledge to know that you're there if needed makes you hireable. If someone says, I'm only willing to work 9 to 5 and I got to go home no matter what, you're not hireable for a good high-paying job because they need to know that you're there if and when needed. Now, that doesn't mean you have to do it every day. No, it just means that you need to be there. So if you want to get hired, you want to do what the hiring manager wants. And what does the hiring manager want? I'm going to say it one more time because I want you guys all to get great cloud architect jobs. Hiring managers want someone that can do the job, someone that can be trusted, someone that is competent and safe, someone that is energetic, enthusiastic, someone that's emotionally intelligent or raises the energy in the room, someone that's a team player, and then someone that's willing to go above and beyond. Now, the next question is, what is a cloud architect? So why do I spend so much time talking about what is a cloud architect? And why does it upset so many certification providers who have never worked as cloud architects? I'm going to tell you this because I've been an architect now for 2 decades plus. And guess what? The first cloud I worked on was in 1999. It was Frame Relay. And then 2000, it was the ATM cloud. And around 2002, it was the VPLS cloud and the BGP VPN clouds. I've worked on more clouds than you can describe. And all of us original network architects actually designed all these clouds in the same way because these clouds are just virtualized networks and data centers. And things like containers, we were using private VLANs, which were the functional equivalent 25 years ago. So nothing's new. It's just changed in more things. It's all networking that's now virtualized. So what is a cloud architect? Well, a cloud architect is an end-to-end systems designer. As cloud architects, we design. Cloud engineers build. So cloud architects design, meaning no coding, no configuring, just design. Cloud engineers build, meaning they spend lots of time with the CLI, the API, and the management console. SysOps people maintain it after the cloud engineers build it. And DevOps people do a completely different process to automate software release cycles and help deploy things, help us. But they are, again, vastly different careers. You can't be all. They're very, very different. So here's what happened. Because the term cloud architect has been tossed around so many times in so many different ways, Gartner, which is an organization that assesses new technology, assesses job trends, employment trends, anything related to technology, actually went and asked CIOs from all over. And they basically said, what's going on here? There's all these jobs related to cloud architect jobs. And basically speaking, I'm not sure what just happened to my monitor. Here we go. Sorry, I was trying to actually paste something in and it didn't work. But so what goes on is CIO Magazine said these job descriptions for cloud architects are so insane and they have nothing to do with architecture. Let's go ask people what they actually want to hire in a cloud architect. What do you want to hire? So Gartner went and interviewed CIO after CIO after CIO. So chief information officers are the people that run the technology organization. So they determine the hiring. So here's what I mean by that. You have the CEO of every business and they set the strategy for the business. Right beneath the CEO, they have a CIO or chief information officer. And this chief information officer meets the CEO's strategy through the use of technology, IT technology. So all of the business's strategic vision is basically goes to the CIO, who hires people to execute that vision. So the CIO is responsible for everything that every tech player does in the organization. The CIO has a VP of IT, who has a director of IT, who has a hiring manager. So who determines what you get hired and what your skills do? The CIO, not a certification organization, the CIO. So guess what? Here's what happened, and I'll put the link. Okay, well, Chris, you can pop that link into YouTube for us. So I posted the link from the study in CIO Magazine. When CIOs were actually asked, what do you want in a cloud architect? Here is what they responded. They said, we want someone that can lead the cultural change for cloud adoption. That means leadership. Then they said someone that can develop and coordinate the cloud architecture, that means design. Then they said develop a cloud strategy and coordinate the adoption of design and leadership. Then they said find talent with the necessary skills. Then they say assess applications, software, and hardware. Then they say create a cloud broker team. Again, more leadership things. Then they say establish best practices for the cloud across the company, more leadership things, selecting cloud providers and vetting third-party providers, both leadership as well as architecture, a little tech there, oversee governance and mitigate risk, work with the IT security people to monitor privacy, okay, collaboration, and managing budgets, leadership, and estimating cost, leadership, and operating at scale. Note, what did you not hear here? You did not hear management console, you did not hear programming, you did not hear coding, you did not hear scripting, you did not hear sysops, you did not hear DevOps, you heard none of that. What you heard is design and lead, design and lead. And let me tell you, after being an architect for 20 some years, that's all architects do. When I became an architect, I stopped configuring routers and switches and only designed them. I started working at the CEO level, the CIO level. Everything I did was work with executives and do end-to-end design. And whether you're going from that cloud architect or enterprise architect roles, these are business jobs and technology jobs combined. They are not engineering jobs. And if you train to be an engineer, you will not be hireable. You must be an architect to do an architect job. Realize that all certification training courses are this. Here's S3, here's how to configure it. Here's an EC2 instance, here's how to configure it. Now that skill, if you're a junior implementation engineer, is valuable because you're the configurer. But if you're an architect, it's totally unrelated to what we do. We don't care because we don't necessarily configure S3. What we do need to do is be able to have a 2-hour to a 10-day conversation with a storage expert at the data center to find out all their storage things. And we need to know what is the storage, how does it work, what are the applications for use, how they're migrating it, what they're doing with the metadata in the storage, if it's object storage, the types of things they're using for block storage, the type of performance they need. That's the discussion. We have to be able to design something that may have 20,000 remote locations, 300,000 plays. And guess what? We're not configuring S3 buckets, but we need to know how everything works in the chain because we're designing that chain. That's the skill of an architect. So there is no coding as an architect. I'm going to say that again for the people on YouTube. No coding as an architect. No scripting as an architect. Design, design, design. Present, design. Write, design. Present, present. Design, design, design. Lead, and that's the job. So now that you actually know what an architect is from someone that's been an architect, and all my students that are working, graduates that are working as architects are doing the same thing, and all the architects that I know are doing the same things. They're not working on Git, and they're sure not making Python scripts. They are meeting with clients, and we are designing things. And design, and design, and design. So how do you be great? Well, I'll tell you how you become a great cloud architect. I'm going to tell you how you do it with us. I'm going to tell you how to do it on your own. If you are with us, we've got a 16-week training program for people that have tech experience, and the same program we offer to people without any tech background, but instead of being 16 weeks, it becomes more like 24 to 32 weeks, and we don't care, we don't charge more. It takes a lot of training to be there. You must learn the following: the network, the data center, and the cloud. And you must have extreme depth on the network and the data center. First, the cloud is nothing more than a basic network and data center that's been virtualized. Nothing more than that. It's super simple when you understand the network and the data center. If you don't understand the network and the data center, wow, this is a challenging thing. So if you're with us, you're part of our 250 to 500-hour training program, and everybody has the option to do the full 500 hours. But typically speaking, if somebody has enough tech background, they can get it done in our 250-hour program. But everybody at the same low price gets to be able to do the 250 or the 500-hour program. We just want our students to get hired. So if you're not with us, here's what you're going to need to do. And this is going to be about 5,000 to 8,000 pages of reading, but don't worry, it's worth it. The sellers of cloud architects are amazing. So let's do this. So as follows. I need you to learn about networking. I need you to learn about interior gateway protocols, mostly just OSPF, just to know. I need you to learn a lot about exterior gateway protocols, specifically BGP. I need you to understand QoS. I need you to understand VPNs and IPsec technology. I need you to understand private lines. I need you to understand IP addressing design. And let me tell you, there's a difference between subnetting and design. That is an art and a science, and you need to learn that. I need you to learn about NAT and all the different use cases in that, private VLANs, 802.1x authentication, 802.1q, Q and Q tagging, Ethernet over MPLS, maybe start to begin learning a little bit about SDN. That's a percent of VLANs and such. That's a percentage of what you need to know. You can find that documentation completely free between Cisco and Juniper networks in about 5,000 pages, and that will teach you the network. Now, after that, here's what you need to know. Now, if you're one of our students, we've got videos for all of this. But if not, you now need to know the rest of the data center components. You must learn virtualization. Here's what you need to do. Just do this. If you're with us, it's included, and you can do this on our servers. But if not, buy yourself a 16-core server, go to the VMware webpage, and read all the documentation on vSphere and VMware ESXi. And when you're done that, go to Linux and read all about KVM and QEMU. Might be 500-800 pages, no big deal. And now you'll know the intro to virtualization that you're going to need. Again, my students get it in videos. And then after that, you need to, because virtualization is the computing platform that enables the cloud, and 99% of everything that you're going to be working with is going to be a virtualized server coming in, most likely from VMware ESXi, and if not, KVM. So you've got to know these. Then when you're done, you need to learn about containers, because containers are the second compute platform in both the data center and the cloud. Nothing changes. So read Docker, read Kubernetes, read about containers from VMware. Again, that's not going to be that complicated. It's about 500 to 800 pages, and you'll start to understand what you need to know about containers. Again, if you're with us, it's completely covered. Now, we covered compute, we covered network. So what do you need to do? Now you need to learn storage. And let's face it, any certified solution architect professional course doesn't even include what you need to know about storage, even 5% of it. So how do you become good at storage? Well, Dell EMC and IBM have some extremely good documentation on storage. About 500 pages of storage later, you'll now be competent. You'll understand block storage, file storage, object storage, and local storage, what you need to do. So that's what I would say for storage. Now, we've got compute and storage. Databases, go to Oracle, go to MySQL, go to Microsoft SQL, go read about Apache Cassandra, go read about MongoDB. About 1,000 pages of database knowledge, and you'll be good to go. Again, if you're with us, we teach people how to do this, but you got to learn this. So if you're with us, great. If not, these are the free ways to do it. When you are done this, learn about Microsoft Active Directory. Guess what? Microsoft has some extremely good free training, and go learn that. And you should be in great shape. So after this, what do you need to learn next? You need to learn NFS and file sharing. Read about it and go build it. But we'll talk more about the building hands-on technical piece later. Now, firewalls. You got to know firewalls. You're going to be using them everywhere, and most likely it's going to be a lot more than WAF. So I need you to go to Cisco and Checkpoint and Palo Alto and Fortinet and go read about enterprise firewalls. Again, about 1,000 pages here, and you will be solid. Do the same thing for IDS IPS systems, same sources. Do the same thing for VPN concentrators, and you will have it. Now you'll start to have the network. Now, I need you to learn about cloud architecture and cloud design and how it works. So I recommend reading the OpenStack Ansible documentation. And I also recommend reading the Nutanix documentation, because they will explain the inner workings of a real cloud, a real live cloud. Now, guess what? You have the technical competency to be hireable. Now, I'm going to tell you this. Technical competency is 50%, only 50% of what you need. Here's the next things that you need to do. And again, if you are with us, it's covered. But if you're not, I still want you to be hireable. Now, we are about 5% of the cost of doing this on your own. And I do this intentionally because I don't need to work. This business is a mission. We take in people, we charge about a day's pay, and we get people hired potentially 6 months to 9 months earlier than they could on their own. And if a cloud architect earns $600 a day and we save them 3 months, that's $36,000 of benefit. We're doing it for that reason. We want to give people options, but you can still do this on your own. So where do you pick up those non-skills, the tangible skills if you're with us? Well, first and foremost, executive presence. You've got to learn that. There's some good executive presence training that's out there. Realistically speaking, it's going to be several $1,000s, but it will make a massive difference in your career and your hireability. Then presentation skills, you've got to work on it. Now, I got to tell you, I've spent a lot. In fact, I'd say between my company and me, we spent over $250,000 on these soft skills training, and it made a big, big difference in career. It made my career move up like a rocket ship. But so what do you need next? Training, speaking. There's a company in California called Speakeasy. They have an intro course so people listen. I would say that's the introduction to architecture level speaking. That would be good, provided by a follow-up course or two to have those kind of cloud architect communication skills. We teach them. Now, after that, presentation skills, Jerry Weissman in the Presenting to Win system is very good to learn those presentation skills. Now, you must learn how to do ROI modeling. Why ROI modeling? People are not like us. We're tech people. We love tech. It's cool. Businesses don't buy tech because they like it. Businesses hate tech. Businesses only buy the tech to solve a problem. So if your solution costs $1 million and you can demonstrate to the customer that it provides $6 million in value, the customer will buy it. If the customer has a $200 million problem and your solution costs $50 million, they'll buy it. You should never design something that doesn't offer a greater return on the investment than the cost, but you can't do that if you can't do ROI modeling, which means without these skills, you can't be an architect and you're not credible. And when you go to present those numbers to the CEO and try and get somebody to buy your $1 billion solution, they won't do it if you can't speak their language. So that's why this is super important. So with us, it's all included. On your own, you now know what to do. Now, let's talk about your certification portfolio. Here's what I'm going to tell you. Don't get 10x AWS certified. Don't be the 10x person that knows a little about a lot of things, but nothing deep about nothing. Not hireable. And you know what generalists are paid in the event you get them hired? Very little. You know what specialists are getting paid? A whole lot. So be something great. Be something where you've got options. So become great at something. So how do I recommend you do this? First and foremost, you're going to need a cloud professional level certification, at least one. So basically speaking, that's something like the AWS Certified Solutions Architect Professional. Now, this is really important in order to achieve this. Get it fast, get it quick, and get it easy, meaning skip the cloud practitioner. There is zero value in the certification. It costs you time, and time takes you money. So if you spend 2 months working on the cloud practitioner, and the average cloud architect earns $600 per day, and the cloud practitioner offers you no job prospects or nothing, that means you lost $24,000 by taking the cloud practitioner. Go straight to the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate exam. Now, when you go straight to the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate exam, it's nearly the same exam as the AWS Cloud Practitioner, but now you're one step closer to the goal. Past that AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate, understand that realistically speaking with that, unless you've got 20 years experience, there's still no jobs. So go straight from that Certified Solution Architect Associate to the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, assuming you want to be a cloud architect. Do not stop at SysOps, do not stop at DevOps, go straight to the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. That will save you months. If you waste 6 months on all these unrelated skills like DevOps and SysOps at $12,000 a month, which is the average salary of a cloud architect, you will lose $72,000. So by taking the $72,000 that you're not going to waste your time on those unrelated certifications, skipping the cloud practitioner, you're basically ahead of $100,000 of earnings. So get there and get there fast. Now, the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional is only 10% of what you need. It is nowhere close to enough knowledge. It is nowhere close to enough skill, and it's nowhere close enough to do the job. But it's a start. What does that AWS Certified Solution Architect buy you? It buys you an interview, which is unbelievable, but we still got to get you skilled. So then pick a specialty, pick something you love. Meaning, if you love networking, get like a CCNP, for example, and the Certified Solution Architect Professional, and you'll be a wonderful cloud network architect, cloud infrastructure architect. But if you like security, go get a CEH, a CCSP, or a CISSP, along with the Certified Solution Architect Professional, and now you've got the portfolio of cloud security architect. No, I didn't say AWS Advanced Security, and no, I didn't say AWS Advanced Networking. I said big certs, industry certs, something that shows you know what you're doing. So get that Certified Solution Architect Professional or Google Professional Cloud Architect, good skill. Then get a massive one. If you want to be a big data person, get a Oracle one, like a professional level Oracle certification. Get something in your field. Now, experience. In order to get hired, you have to have some kind of experience that you can demonstrate. What does that mean? I want to tell you right now that setting up an EC2 instance or creating an S3 bucket or making a WordPress site on Amazon will not get you hired. It will not impress anybody. I still recommend you do it to get familiarity, but it's not going to get you hired. because it's not the kind of experience that employers care about, employers like me and everybody I speak to. So if it won't, what will? What will get you hired? What are you doing as a cloud architect? If you understand this, everything else becomes so easy. Here's the job of the architect. Meet with the client, ask them about their current systems, ask about their business challenges, and find a way to basically either work with those current systems and integrate them to the cloud, either with a hybrid cloud, or building a private cloud for that client, or building a private cloud and connecting it to multiple clouds. You need to know what that is. And you can't do any of that if you don't know their network in the data center. So you can't do a migration if you don't know what you're migrating. You can't design systems that you don't know what they are. So what employers desire is infrastructure experience. So go get some, and I'm going to show you how to do it. If you are one of my students, you have VPN access into our data center, and you can do all these labs, and they're completely included. If you are not with us, here's what you need to do. You need to buy a 16-core Xeon server. Note, I said Xeon server, not a notebook, not a gaming PC, a 16-core Xeon server. In that, have a minimum of 128 gigs of RAM. And in that, have at least 3 SSD drives in RAID 0 or an NVMe drive of substantial size. On that server, again, if you're my students, it's included in the course. But if not, go buy yourself a server. You can pick up a server like this for about $1,000, maybe $1,500. On this server, this is where you get your cloud architect experience. First thing I want you to do is take that server and virtualize it. Maybe install VMware ESXi or KVM, whichever. I would use VMware ESXi because it's the majority of what's going on in the enterprise. Now, after that, after you install VMware ESXi, set up a Linux machine, build an Apache web server from scratch, set up MySQL, set up PHP. Now you've got the LAMP stack. Now build some containers on your server, set up a virtual machine and put a bunch of containers in there. Now, after you set up a virtual machine and set up some containers, set up some file sharing services like NFS, the kind that you will be using for your Linux and Unix system. Well, when you're done setting those great things up, now what do I want you to do? I want you to set up Samba, basically use Linux to share to a Windows environment. When you're done that, I want you to build a firewall. I want you to build a VPN concentrator. I want you to get experience on all this network and data center stuff. Then I want you to set up Microsoft Active Directory. I want you to learn authentication and IAM. Then when you're done that, I want you to build a cloud. All my students do, they all build a cloud. See, when you build a cloud from scratch on a server, and I don't mean a VPC, I mean an entire cloud, where you set up the hypervisors and the containers and the storage databases for all the cloud users, and you set up everything and you build a cloud on a server or servers the same way AWS does it. If you can build AWS, you're now a cloud architect. So these are what my students do. Again, if you're training with us, it's all included. But if not, get yourself a server, go find these external providers and go learn these skills. I told you how to do all of them. So that's my recommendation. So go out there and show focus and depth, get real deep certifications, not wide, get industry certifications, go to conferences, read public documents, read white papers from all the vendors in the technology world. They will all teach you things. And many of them write much better documentation than AWS. AWS is an incredibly great company and provides some incredible services, but most of their documentation is configuration. As an architect, it's more about end-to-end system design. So some of the other vendors that are more established have, like Cisco, have some really good end-to-end system design tools. So does Microsoft, so does Red Hat. So kind of work from everybody. Read the AWS, but read it all. If you're with us, it's all included, but just make sure you do that. Try to make sure you make people feel good, make others feel good in your presence. Get some emotional intelligence training. Offer help and encouragement to people. Learn to control your emotions. Keep that amygdala intact. Keep your prefrontal cortex active where you're smart, capable, and can bring out the best in others. And can think and do logical reasoning. All great things. Now, the next part of our system is you got to fix that resume. And what do I mean by fix that resume? People need to know and want you from your resume. So first and foremost, what is a resume? A resume is simply a document that says, hire me. It's a sales document. It is a brochure. It is an advertisement about you. So when you're dealing with advertisements, now that you know it's an advertisement, what must you do? You got to get people to watch the commercial. If nobody watches your commercial, nobody reads it. So if you see a good commercial, they find a way to capture your emotion and bring you in. Otherwise, you don't watch it. So you want to get hired, build a resume that sells. So employers are going to want to bring you in. Now, what does that mean? Well, first and foremost, I don't care if you've just graduated school. There is no cloud architect that has a one-page resume. If you do, you're not hireable. You don't have enough experience in life. We're going to flesh that resume out. We're going to have to do it. So first and foremost, you should have something that says read me on your resume. So for mine, on the top line, it says Mike Gibbs, MS, MBA, CCIE, Google Professional Cloud Architect. And for the heck of it, I usually list an Amazon cert as well. So top line. Now, the next thing that I see on resumes, which is really terrible, is something called an objective. An objective tells the employer what you want out of the relationship. Now, let's go back to purchasing things. When you go to the store to buy shoes, or at least my wife does, I said, do you ask the shoes if they want to be taken home by you? And she says, why would I do that? I said, well, when people put an objective on your resume, it's like basically asking the employer to do something for you. Now, I got to say this. I don't recommend you ever tell the employer what you want from them until they know you. I recommend that you show the employer what you can do for them, not what they can do for you. Remember, the employer has a problem to solve, and they're going to spend money, meaning hire people to go solve their problem. They're not concerned about your desires. They're concerned about, can you do the job and do you want to be there? So don't have an objective resume. Instead, have an executive summary, something that shows how you can help the organization. I can make one up as we go right now. I might say, for example, accomplished technology executive with 30 years technology experience in network architecture, cloud architectures, and security architectures, experience bringing out the best in others, presentations to executives, leadership skills, etc., 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 closed $1 billion plus deals, designed systems for organizations with 400,000 employees, etc., etc., etc. Something like that is my executive summary. It shows why someone should read it. So do the same thing. So top line, you must have something that says read me, put your most impressive thing. Then make sure you've got an executive summary that convinces the hiring manager to read it. Hiring managers are busy. So now that we've accomplished these things, next one. Now you must have something that literally shows the employer that you are capable. So you've got to have some experience on your resume. And now you're going to say, where do I put this? So there's two places. For students of mine, they have a Go Cloud Architect section. If you are not a student of mine, put a research and development section on your resume. It doesn't look as good as Go Cloud Architects, but it's still something. Now, in those sections, whether it be the Go Cloud Architects or the research and development section, I need you to put down the things that you've done that are real experience. Worked with VMware ESXi for server virtualization. Built, designed and built Docker containers / Kubernetes containers. Built an IP tables UFW firewall for enterprise-wide security. Set up a VPN concentrator to allow remote access employees. Set up network file system shares for file system sharing among Unix computers. Built a Samba system to enable a Linux server to support the server message block protocol and cater to Windows system. Built that Linux, the LAMP stack, the Linux Apache MySQL PHP stack. What else do you put on there? Set up an Microsoft Active Directory server. Built an OpenStack Ansible cloud. Built a Nutanix cloud. Heck, while you're at it, federate your cloud with the Active Directory service that you set up. These are things that work. And then after that, of course, you can put the basic things, set up a 3-tier website on AWS. But really what's going to get you hired is the stuff, the network, the data center, the things that show you're good. Heck, if you have a server, go buy or use the free version of EVE-NG and do some networking. Just become great at what you do. Become a master. Then, if you've done any public speaking, put a public speaking section on your resume. And if not, go to Toastmasters and do some public speaking so you've got some public speaking on your resume. Start writing some documents, get them published because you need to be published. You'll be writing constantly as an architect. As an architect, 50% of your time is spent on writing and presenting. 50%. That's why I say there's no time for coding or scripting. Now, the next part of our system, skip HR. HR is a problem on your first job. Now, I don't want you to think that I don't like HR people. That could not be further from the truth. I have a tremendous amount of respect for HR people. But what are HR people? They are people that are good at finding people that fit into an organization's culture and determine what to pay them. Excellent, and we need them. What are HR people not good at? Assessing technology abilities. Why? Because they're not technology professionals. So Here's what happens. I want you to understand the problem so you understand why our solution works. HR people have no ability to determine whether you're good or not. So you could have a 14-year-old hacker that can break into the world's most secure environments in the world. I want that guy on my team or girl on my team. I don't care. Or you can have somebody that's done something for 50 years that doesn't know anything. HR can't tell the difference because they're not technology professionals. So what happens is HR, because they're not technology professionals, and as I mentioned before, it takes 3,000 to 5,000 applications to hire a single person. Here's what HR does. They put up roadblocks in the job description. They want to know this career. They want you to know this career. They want you to know this career. They want you to know this career. And they look for 20 years experience to try and weed out applications from people that they don't think are sophisticated enough for the position. They may want a couple of Olympic gold medals. You're going to send your resume to HR and it's going to get rejected, rejected, and rejected. Look, we're not telling you not to do this at all, but, we haven't found this to be the most successful solution, kind of like hitting your head against the wall and hoping it doesn't hurt. Now, at some point, hitting your head against the wall won't hurt anymore. Something will happen either anyway, but our recommendation is to be more skillful. Here's what we do. We use whenever possible. We skip HR and go straight to recruiters. So here's what happens is HR puts up all these things. I need this skill set, this skill set, this skill set, this skill set. So by the time they get to us, the hiring managers, we hiring managers now interview someone. This person may know a little bit about 5 careers, but we can't hire them because they have no idea of the career, because HR has things related to every other skill other than what we need. So what do we hiring managers then do? I can tell you what we all do because we all do it. We then call our favorite tech recruiter and we say, hey, what do we need? And when we call our favorite tech recruiter, here's what happens. I call my tech recruiter. The one that I work with most is Steve. He's placed so many of my graduates, plus he also set me up with 2 of the 5 interviews that I went on. I've only been on 5 interviews and I've got hired by all 5 companies. And Steve set up a couple of them for me. So I've got lots of respect, plus he's done a lot of work. So I call Steve and I say, I need a cloud security architect, someone that's highly trustworthy, someone that's very skillful, someone that speaks well, someone that's likable, someone that I can get in front of executives. And Steve calls me and he says, I got this guy, Alonzo Coleman. Alonzo Coleman is a rock star. He comes from the graphics world, but he knows more about this kind of tech. He understands this. He communicates well. I want you to speak to him. So now Alonzo comes to me. Now I know Alonzo is one of my students and I'm extremely fond of Alonzo, but let's just say I wasn't. Alonzo comes to me. He's also on this call. And I interview Alonzo after I've already heard from Steve. He tells me he's good, he's honorable, he's capable, he's this. I'm biased to like Alonzo. So person comes up from HR, I'm like, okay, great, another jack of all trades and a master of none, whatever. And I got Alonzo coming in from the recruiter I trust, whatever. Alonzo's chances of getting hired, very high. Plus, guess what happens? He skipped HR completely. Here is the process when we use recruiters. You go interview with that hiring manager. The hiring manager either doesn't like you and sends you home, but that's not usually the case if you interview right. You should never go on more than 3 interviews and not be hired. If you're not hired after interviewing for 3 different jobs, there's something wrong with your technical competency, interview technique, emotional intelligence, soft skills, presentation skills. So if it's been more than 3, re-strategize, you're doing something wrong. Generally speaking, if you're really good on interviews, you can get hired almost every time. But let's just work on this. So I'm now biased to like Alonzo. I now interview Alonzo and I'm like, hey, Alonzo, I'm going to hire you. Here's what I then do. I say, Alonzo, I need you to go fill out an application. Don't worry, I'm going to hire you anyway. It's merely a formality. Then I'm going to notify HR. I'm going to say, I am hiring Alonzo Coleman as a senior cloud architect, even though he has no experience because he's really good. I need Alonzo to be paid 1.3 times the average cloud architect because his business acumen is good. He's got an MBA, he's got a program management background, and in addition to some other things. HR says, fine, Mike. They then send me a package. I call Alonzo and say, you're hired. Now, the reality is 9 months from now, a year from now, it's very likely that Alonzo is going to get an email from HR. Alonzo, thank you so much for applying for this position, but you didn't meet the necessary requirements. Come and apply another time. Alonzo is going to be laughing hysterically because he's already not only had the job, he's already been promoted and is doing great. This happens constantly. I've been 2 of the 5 jobs that I interviewed for that I was hired for, which I was already promoted because I skipped HR. HR would send back rejection letters. It happens to my students all the time, but don't worry, you're already working there and you're already hired. So that's why we bypass HR. because there is a massive disconnect with what we hiring managers actually desire with what HR sends us. So HR executive recruiters, not company recruiters, executive recruiters, people that get paid $20,000 to $50,000 for me to call them and give me someone so that I can actually find someone that I can hire. We have 200 of them or so in our program right now. We add a lot every week. Very valuable resource to getting hired because they can send you straight to the hiring manager. So if you want to go out there, here's what we recommend you do. Learn, and learn some more. Learn what it takes to be technically competent and go do it. Learn the business acumen skills, the executive presence skills, the emotional intelligence skills. Get the right certifications, not a million and one of them, but the right ones. And then build the perfect resume, become what the hiring manager desires, build your network of recruiters. Again, our students have access to our 200 or so, but assuming they do all the work and we can call them for them, but get your own recruiters anyway, build the recruiter network for the rest of your life and go interview and get hired. Become skillful, get hired. Be what the hiring manager wants. Know yourself, know your enemy, know exactly what they want and how to be hired, and you will get hired. So let me do this. Let me tell you about our training for 5 minutes, no more, and then I will take any questions. My associate Chris has been compiling questions from YouTube and Zoom if they're there. And I will take anybody that wants to come off mute, that wants me to talk to them about their background. I am happy to do it. I will answer questions on YouTube or Zoom, and it's just fun party time now. So let me just tell you about what we do for literally speaking 5 minutes. At Go Cloud Careers, Go Cloud Architects, we train cloud architects. We have a 16-week cloud architect training program, and it works as follows. On Mondays and Fridays, we do completely free cloud architect training it's included, it's not free, it's for our students. But on Monday and Friday, we have a 3-hour architecture training session. And then these live architecture training sessions, here's what we do. Students interview me, and they basically ask me, an executive, about my business, technology, legal, and regulatory requirements. From there, here's what ultimately occurs. The students will do this. They will ask me a series of questions. It's about 150 questions that you need to ask an exec, ask the people to actually figure out what's actually necessary to do the job. So our students have a list. They ask me questions. After my students have questions, they design an architecture with me. They present the architecture back. They present technology just like a real cloud architect would do in their real life. On Mondays and Fridays, we have live training where everybody participates via Zoom. Now, that's about 100 hours of architecture live training that we do in our program. Now, the next part of our program are videos on demand. Our students, literally speaking, in between the classes on Monday and Friday, have access to basically 200 videos. And in these 200 videos, which again is a couple hundred hours worth of training, our students will learn about servers, and they'll learn about the network, they'll learn about the data center, presentation skills, career planning, resume building, interview skills. Literally everything that's necessary for the job, my students do. And what happens, my students will do the homework assignments, they'll submit them to our Slack channel, and we'll give them feedback. Homework could be on presentations, architecture design, and our students do a lot of that. Now, we also have the lab component is pretty much the envy of the world. And what happened is I invested in a tremendous number of servers. I knew after interviewing 1,000 potential cloud architects that something needed to be done, and I bought more servers than you can possibly imagine. So here's what our students do. They VPN into our data center. Inside of our data center, our students get really technically deep. They build new things to give them experience that employers care about. Our students work with server virtualization. They build containers, which is the base computing platform on the cloud. Our students set up the LAMP stack, which is one of the most common web-based applications. Our students set up network file system shares, Samba shares. Our systems build firewalls, VPN concentrators. Our students set up Active Directory, and our students build their own cloud. So when you have that on your resume, that you built your own OpenStack Ansible cloud and federated it to, Microsoft AD, and you can build the cloud from scratch, and your competition is out there, and your competition's capabilities are set up in EC2 instance, who do you think is getting hired? You are. So basically going back to our program, we've got 30 or so hours of AWS training to make sure that you're extra solid on the AWS cloud. And we make sure that all of our students can design cloud solutions on every cloud, because as a real cloud architect, there's no such thing as just Azure or just AWS or just GCP. Everything is our hybrid clouds and multi-clouds, especially now. So That's what we teach in our program. We do our training, so live training twice per week, videos on demand between the week, feedback on live calls because you're speaking to us, and feedback on the Slack channel for the homework assignments throughout the week. And that's basically speaking the way we run our training programs. Our training program is 16 weeks for people that have a tech background, and for people that don't have a tech background, realistically speaking, what's going on is they can stay on our program longer, do more architectural training, and in the end, instead of getting like 250 hours, they get 500 hours, and that's generally enough for people that have no tech background that are transitioning outside of other careers. So that's how we train our engineers and our architects. Our students do well. This is more of a mission for me than an actual business. Because of that, we basically take 1 day's pay of a cloud architect salary, and that's it. We can easily charge 20 or 25,000 for this course and sell it all day long. Instead, we make it sub $1,000. The average cloud architect earns $600 a day. A really good cloud architect can earn $1,200 or more. So, our price is, in that range of a single day's pay for a cloud architect. And we do that because we want to help the world. Our students come in, they work with us, they get hired. And we absolutely love the process. So does anybody have any questions for me? Now's the time for me to start asking questions. And so Chris has sent me some questions that people have asked during the time. I'm going to answer them now. Having said that, there may also be some other questions that pop up. If there's questions about us, our training, or anywhere in between, we'd love to ask them. So Srinivas, how do you make advanced professionals handle the interview process? Well, Srinivas, we do the following. First, there's a couple things that need to go on in an interview. First and foremost, you need to answer questions the right way. So we've got about 15 hours of training on how to answer the questions on the interviews right. Then we make our students practice answering interview questions by submitting videos on demand, which we give feedback on. Then we make sure the students have the knowledge and the presentation skills to do it. What is the technology? How does the technology work? And why do the organizations use it? We make sure our students know how to frame the technology, explain the technology. So realistically speaking, that's what we do. Now, when you said what suggestions would I give to senior architects, if and when I actually meet with senior architects, I have to assess them, Srinivas. So most of the time when I deal with people that have been in tech for a long period of time that are very good technology professionals, it's more of a presentation skills, business acumen skills, executive coaching, mentorship, leadership kind of training thing. Many years ago, I had a manager that said, hey, Mike, you know the difference between a $100,000 engineer and a $300,000 engineer? And this was said to me 20 years ago. And he was dead right. Business skills, business acumen, emotional intelligence, soft skills. And I went and spent about $250,000 of training with the company's help. And you know what? My salary tripled. So here's what I'm going to tell you. For senior people, what I recommend is picking a specialty, maybe an industry vertical or maybe a technology, master that thing, and then learn how to write, speak, and present better than anyone else that in your field, and your career will rise and rise and rising. So hope I answered your question there. Feel free to come back. Nacho basically asked the question, I hear this every day. There is no coding at all in being an architect. An architect is an end-to-end system designer. Meet with a client, ask the right questions, baseline their current systems, and design of solutions. And Nacho there is no coding and there is no configuring as an architect. It's all design, writing, and presentations. And I'm happy to answer more questions there, Nacho Max. From Abrian. Good morning, Mike. I just love your content and always. Oh, thank you so much. And the logic behind our solutions. From your end, if you could talk a little bit about private LB and DNS on top of the private subnets, that would be great. Last week, you were asked on an ideal architecture leading security side of TikTok. Cloud answered decently good, but I think based on your videos, just wanted to see how you would do it. Abraham, I would love to do this. Typically speaking, this is not a technology forum, but a career forum, but let's talk about this. Let's make it very clear because you're here and others are here. Here's what you can say. A load balancer is a system to improve performance and availability. Load balancers work by distributing load off onto multiple servers. This is a hardware device that is done at high speed, at high performance. Load balancers are there for performance. Basically, they are a server that has multiple outputs that will make multiple servers function as a single unit. DNS, by comparison, is a service to map a name to an IP address. Go Cloud Careers with our IP address. So it is a mapping service. So while you can load share via DNS, which is basically every time a system asks the DNS server, it will load balance it in a round robin process or a specific process. But DNS is not designed for performance. It is not designed for anything like that. It basically will distribute amongst multiple servers with multiple different IP addresses. So load balancers are just to share, are basically going to improve performance and availability by eliminating single points of failure. And DNS is really related to mapping a name to an IP address. So they're pretty unrelated. I hope I answered your question there. If you'd like more, I'm happy to talk more about that. So let me go through the next set of questions. The next question is a very simple one from B. Ben. B. Ben said, I joined your program. Should I focus on AWS before joining the training calls? No, please join the training calls absolutely immediately. Here's the thing. You can do all the AWS training you want. And if you're just learning the name of the service and how to configure it, it won't mean anything to you. So come to our training classes. Let us explain to you what block storage is, object storage, servers, virtualization, networking is. And then when you read that AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate book of ours, and you watch our free training videos, it'll make sense to you and it will be really great. Whereas if you just try and read these things from the book, or you just take the Certified Solution Architect training, you're going to miss all the knowledge of what is the tech. AWS certification training is as follows. I want you to understand how unapplicable it is to our world. AWS service training is the name of the service and how to configure it. Name of the service and how to configure it. Name of the service and how to configure it. Now pretend you gave a doctor 5 pills and said, you give this pill at 300 milligrams, this pill at 500 milligrams, this pill at 400 milligrams, and this pill at 100 milligrams. But you didn't tell the doctors what the pills were used for or how to diagnose the patient. You just taught them 5 pills. Well, guess what? AWS certification training is, here's the name of the service and how to configure it, which is great for cloud engineers. But for architects, it's almost completely irrelevant because we don't need to know the name of the service and how to configure it. We need to know how to design it and integrate it into an end-to-end solution. So that's why I'm saying you're already one of our students. You already bought the course. Please take our course first, and then we will make passing the Certified Solution Architect Associate and Professional silly easy for you. So that's our recommendation. So, okay. Now, let's get to the next question that I see here. Sir, as a fresher, can you get into product-based companies, Amazon, Oracle for cloud computing for AWS? Shaifa, Farin, I've got students that are joining all the cloud companies as a fresher. So sure. I even have someone that was only with me for 3 weeks and he's really done well for himself. He's now over at AWS. That is very non-typical, but getting into a product-based company is fine, but it's not always the best option to go to the product-based companies. Sometimes it's better to go to a big bank or a global retailer or other companies that will pay you more than the product-based companies and potentially even give you an easier job. So product-based companies are great. Phone companies are also great. Consulting companies are also great, as are all the global enterprises that'll pay cloud architects to make sure to design the systems that'll be on the cloud, because you can't leave your system design to the cloud provider because it's in the cloud provider's best interest to charge the most. I'm not saying that the cloud providers won't be ethical. It's just that organizations know that, so they always hire their own architects to work with the architects of the cloud provider. Hi, Mike. What should be the ideal number of pages in a resume? It depends how long you've worked, Anil Sharma. It could be an example of 2 pages, or it could be 5 like mine. So I don't know the jobs you've done. You worked in PeopleSoft, and which is great. So you've got 12 years in those kind of software background, which is great. Keep that on your resume, but tease out the things that are related to this. You know, were you presenting systems with PeopleSoft? Were you interacting with clients? Did you have to document solutions? Did you design an end-to-end PeopleSoft solution? That's architecture. If you did, put it in there. Find something that's related and do this. So, can our team scan your resume and provide feedback? We do that for our students. It's included as part of our program, Emil. The next question you ask, because you've asked a couple of them, Emil, and we're happy to answer them all, is you ask, can I give an example of emotional intelligence for a cloud architect? I'll give you about a half a dozen in about 3 seconds. when you are presenting to the chief information officer or the CEO that's going to buy something, and they look like they're not superly happy with something or not happy with something, you need to be able to read their body language. You need to be able to take them from unhappy to happy and convince them they need the solution. Another thing is, for example, emotional intelligence, Anil, is you're going to go to a client site and you're going to be interacting with the engineers and the architects. Now, the engineers and architects at the client site are not happy because basically they know the reason people are moving to the cloud is to get rid of all those entry-level positions, to get rid of all those racking and stacking people, the cabling people, because there's none of that on the cloud. So when you go there as a cloud architect, people are not going to want to give you information because you're going to be the person helping to steal some of their jobs. So you're going to have to be emotionally intelligent with them to try and make them want to help you. And also having the emotional intelligence and the communication skills to find those people that are there that are going to get laid off and maybe help the employer find a new job for them and teach them the cloud skills to be hired. So you're not a problem, you're a solution provider. Let's talk of other ways of emotional intelligence. As a cloud architect, you may have to design something. Maybe there's a proof of concept that has 20 engineers building it for you and multiple other architects as part of your team. Guess what? They don't work for you. So when you need them to get to do their job, you can't threaten them with being fired because they don't work for you. So you're going to have to smooth out any kind of things necessary to do the job. Then you're going to be in a meeting. And in that meeting, you're going to deal with multiple personality types. You've got executives like me that have an intuitive personality type. We're the strategic ones, which are typically CEOs. You're going to have people that are very functionally oriented or detail oriented. They're typically going to be your operations people. And you need to be able to speak to different skills because we all think differently. So make sure you have to know these things. So they're just a couple of examples. It's impossible to be an architect without being highly emotionally intelligent. Anil Sharma, I think, is there any contract? Basically speaking, we have one course at one price. Anybody that buys the course at that price basically agrees to buying the course at that price. Other than that, I don't know what you mean by contract. So if you've got more questions, feel free to ask them. Now, I see there's some more questions.
Mike, he said contact.
Oh, contact. Oh, okay. Thank you for doing that. Chris, could you put our organization's phone number? I can't seem to leave any comments on YouTube today.
Yes.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, so Anil, sorry about that. It was a little hard for me to see it on my new computer screen. Haven't gotten all the sizing of everything right. For Niraj, is competitive coding required? No way. You won't be doing any coding, Niraj. Now, you may have to give a presentation in your interview process. It's extremely common to have to give a presentation in an architecture interview. Most of the interviews that I've been through for my career has always ended in a presentation ready to get hired. And they might make that presentation incredibly stressful for you. For example, I went on a single presentation, and when I went on that presentation, when I had to give that presentation, the company decided to start an argument to see if I was emotionally intelligent enough to calm it down. And when I started giving the presentation, everything was great. Then the audience started to fight, and I used my emotional intelligence to calm it down. And here's what actually happened. They stopped it. They started laughing. They said, Mike, they said, this is a job. You're going to be presenting a lot. But when did I see if you had the emotional intelligence to deal with the conflict? You did. Interview's over. So presentations all the time. So the next question I hear from is, so starting off, we get this, do you recommend putting an abbreviation by the name? Look, here's my recommendation. Top line of your resume should have things like Mike Gibbs, MS, MBA, CCIE, Google Professional Cloud Architect, and I use abbreviations there. As a rule in your writing, no abbreviations, no acronyms without defining them first. Executives need a definition. Every time someone comes to me and they say, hey, I got a new, they use an abbreviation, I say, does it mean this, 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 or this? And they say, well, it doesn't mean any of them, it means this. Don't use any abbreviations or acronyms. There's 1,000,001 of them, and they all have 50 different meanings, and it causes confusion. If you don't want ours, just call a spade, call the thing exactly what it's called, and you will be in much better shape. Now, who has more questions?
Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Hi, Ned, how are you?
All right, glad you're feeling better.
I am doing so much better. Thank you so much.
Hey, you intrigued me today when you said put Go Cloud on the resume.
Yeah.
How will we go about doing that?
create a section, Go Cloud Architects. And that section lists all the things you've done. And for you can put down any title you really want to do. You could say student. I think you're part of the intern project too. So you could put,
Yeah.
Cloud Architect intern.
Okay.
With
I
the
was just
job.
gonna put consultant there. Okay.
Yeah, definitely put something in there to show your experience. You've got to get it there. I mean,
Yeah.
and then, put it in your LinkedIn profile and make sure that, because, when people see what you're actually doing, I want people to know that you're actually doing things and where you're doing them. And people will know that it's pretty serious, because I've got connections pretty much everywhere.
Okay. Appreciate it, Mike.
You got it, Ned. Who else has the next question? FM, great question. How much networking do you need to know? Somewhere between the CCNA level and CCNP level. In that, at the CCNA, there's a little bit, there's like some subnetting, there's a little bit about OSPF, which is probably all you need to know about OSPF as an architect. They teach you about VLANs, they teach you about trunk parts, they teach you about spanning tree, all important. All that's in the CCNA. They teach you basic introductory level NAT. They may teach a little bit of basic QoS in the CCNA. Now, what you need above that is you need to understand some real security, which is not at the CCNA level, more than just an access list. The CCNA level doesn't talk about BGP. It doesn't talk about routing protocol design. So on the routing side, specifically the exterior gateway protocol, FM, you need a cross between CCNP and CCIE level knowledge. And we teach that to all of our students. So it's a cross between CCIE level knowledge and basically CCNA level knowledge, which is kind of, we have to tune. I'll tell you that the AWS Advanced Networking, which we teach that is because we view AWS Advanced Networking, the curriculum, as an intro to junior level networking for the cloud. So we use that as a preparation before we can be, as a preparation for our students that basically don't have a background, that want to become cloud network architects. We use that as basically something as a precursor like the CCNP. Alan, does the CCNP data center and VMware certification help you become a cloud engineer or architect? Absolutely. Those two certifications will be a big help. So much so, Alwyn, that I don't know what you've done with your CCNP data center, and you can come off mute and you can tell me more, and then I'll give you some guidance. But so yeah, CCNP could basically be doing configuration, which is helpful to be the cloud engineering and a little bit helpful to be the architect. Or at the CCNP level, you can be working on internet routing architectures and multi-homing to multiple ISPs, doing some traffic engineering and dealing with a lot of trunking and end-to-end system design and designing network security, things like 802.1x and private VLANs and all these other cool things, and fancy QoS policies, so which can improve security. So Alwyn, if you're coming from that background, huge help to be in architecture. Now, VMware, huge help, because what is the cloud? It's just a network and a data center that's been virtualized. So if you've got some data center knowledge and Cisco data center is strong knowledge and VMware data center is strong knowledge, you're halfway there. Then it's just, getting the cloud certification and then the business skills, the communication skills, the executive presence, the emotional intelligence. That's all you need to do to transition, Alwyn. Networking people have it a lot easier than the rest. Most of the CCIEs that I know, at least 50% of them, what they actually do is they literally go straight to the cloud providers and they take senior and principal roles with no cloud certifications whatsoever, or even cloud background other than our standard networking background, which is cloud anyway, because we've all been working with clouds for 30 years in networking. There's been nothing new that's been really developed. It's just variations of the same thing. AWS says, okay, we've got Cloud Hub and Transit Gateway, and people like me from the networking world say, yep, I worked with that technology 30 years ago. It was called a route reflector. Now, I'm not saying that AWS didn't make a great choice. They did. Excellent choice. But, it's just the same 30-year-old technology. So what else do we find interesting from the world? VLANs became server virtualization. Private VLANs basically are the functional equivalent of containers. See, nothing's really changed. What's really going on is we've taken the same old technologies and they've gotten faster, and we're just using them for new things due to power. But it's the same tech, and that's why we love these kind of things. I'll tell you one thing. AWS and Google Cloud certification aren't even close to enough knowledge to be a cloud engineer or an architect, because the skill set is, it's maybe 10% of what you need, but only 10%, no more. Tyrone, assuming you know nothing about cloud, how long will it take me to be qualified with our training? Do you write an exam to show my knowledge? Okay, Tyrone, so if you were one of our students and you had no technology background whatsoever, meaning none, you've never worked in tech, never worked on a computer, never installed an operating system, I got to tell you, typically speaking, we're dealing with 6 to 8 months of training. So depending upon how you've worked, how learned, I've seen people do it in less, but you know, there were people that worked 40 hours a week on training. But I'd say if you've not worked in tech before, we're typically dealing about 6 to 8 months to be job ready, assuming you actually do the work. Tyrone, I hope that I've answered your question, and by all means, please feel free to ask in more depth. And you could be able to work into AWS, Azure, or any company, wouldn't matter, but don't limit yourself to those companies. There are many other jobs. Now, Tyrone, I have a lot of Tyrones in South Africa that I work with. I think you may be one of the South African Tyrones. And if you're there, obviously some of the bigger companies like AWS, for example, are actually there. You may not be the Tyrone that I'm thinking of. I've got one Tyrone in South Africa, another Tyrone that also attends a lot of our calls from South Africa. So there, I would say you're going to have more opportunities with the big cloud providers. But don't forget, all those other global companies also need to hire them. Whether it's a big bank or a big enterprise or a big exporter, they all need the cloud, so you can work at any of these locations, not just the cloud providers. So don't limit yourself to just cloud providers. There are many, many other things. I routinely get asked to support clients in Japan from Florida. So don't allow yourself to be limited. There are so many jobs spread throughout the world for cloud architects, and we can't hire them. We can't hire them because there's almost no one that's capable of doing the job. That's why when I saw the certification training materials that were out there, I knew I had no choice but to produce free certification materials to give people a chance and create a program to take those that were either certified or wanted to get industry hired. So I had no choice. So the next question I see coming in on Zoom. If you're actually on Zoom, would you like, Aham, would you like to come off and ask your questions live, and I'll literally answer your questions live by speaking? If not, I can do it via chat, but if you'd like to speak, I can help you. Aham Sorba. Okay, so Aham, I don't exactly know your background. If you want to come off mute, I'm actually happy to answer some things. Working on, you're trying to volunteer for a job. Are you there?
Good morning. Hello.
Good morning. How are you, Aham?
Yeah, I'm good. And you?
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just moved to. Yeah. I've been in the oil and gas, so I just moved to IT, and I've been able to get the AWS Solution Architect Associate.
Excellent.
Yeah, even I went further for the sake because I want to specialize in the security. I went further to get the CompTIA Cybersecurity Plus.
I would not do that.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why. So keep going. Tell me your goals, and where are you located now, and which part of Africa are you from?
Hello, sir?
Yeah. Where are you located now, and which part of Africa are you from?
Okay. Yeah. I'm currently in the United States.
Okay.
And I'm from Nigeria.
That's what I thought, but I just don't like to make assumptions. I've got over 70 Nigerian students. They're all wonderful. So here's the reason I wanted you to come off mute. What is your current job right now?
Okay. My current job right now is still in the oil and gas. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still in the oil and gas. I work as a subsea engineer.
Okay. So you've done some engineering. There's a lot of things that go into oil and gas, and you're drilling those holes, you're dealing with the drill bit, for example, you're dealing with the strength of it, you're dealing with how much you can do, how hot it can get, what do you have to do to keep things monking, what are you doing, where are you moving the things that you're extracting. So all that kind of work that you're actually doing is very similar to architecture. So the first thing is to basically look at your past experience and then tease out anything in that architecture experience for your resume or anything from that engineering experience that could look like architecture. Did you consult with a client to determine, you know, the best process? Did you figure out a new solution or any of those things? Because generally speaking, the engineers in this world do a lot. And often they're in front of customers. I'm assuming you were in front of customers from time to time? Okay, let's assume you are. So tease all that experience out and put it on your resume. Now, the next question is getting you knowledgeable. So this Certified Solution Architect Associate is about 1 to 2% of what you actually need for the cloud architect job. No more than 2%. The Certified Solution Architect Professional is about 10% of what you actually need. So what I would say is there's the following. If you were to get the Certified Solution Architect Professional, then you would have an easier time finding a volunteer position. Now, the way I would find the volunteer position, I'm not sure that this is necessarily the best approach, but the way I would do it is I would go to LinkedIn and I would say, I'm an AWS Certified Solutions Architect Professional who's recently graduated. You've got a tremendous amount of time doing consulting, this, that, the other thing that you've actually done. So I would then say that. Now, after I then did that, I would say that you'd like to do an internship where you can benefit the employer, where you can use your skills in X and Y and Z to assist them. And in return, you're looking for experience. But do it with an open, helpful, I want to help you look, and you will get responses like you can't even imagine. I wish I had more time. I used to take in interns all over the place. I just don't have the time that I used to, but I absolutely loved it. So, you know, depends on what it is. So for example, if you're doing that, it's good to be an intern role. By comparison, if I've got one of my students that are things and they've got no tech background, they can put intern. But some of my students are actually doing things, for example, like they're really building things for me. And then they can put a different title on their career so it doesn't like an intern. But so what I would say is go do an internship by requesting people, but do it by showing people you can help. I want you to understand why there's no entry-level jobs in cloud, and probably will never will be, and where all the entry-level cloud jobs dry up, which is why it's just so important for the people to learn the skills that are necessary. It used to be that entry-level jobs were as following. I need somebody to plug the servers in. I need somebody to rack them. I need somebody to install the operating systems. I need people to do the basic configuration and troubleshooting. Basic stuff. None of those jobs are required anymore. See, it's like when you go to the cloud, you don't have to cable something because Amazon's people already did it. You don't have to set up the operating system because Amazon's people did it. So the reason people are going to the cloud is to get rid of all those intro-level people, all the expense and all the complexity. Cloud's not better, cloud's not faster, and the cloud's not cheaper, but it's simple, elegant, which makes it better and faster and cheaper because you don't need half the people. So that's why there's basically no jobs for entry-level people. So if you want to be hired or even do an internship, be great. Get that Certified Solution Architect Professional, get some networking training. And, you know, if you're one of our students, you probably don't even need to do an internship. But if you're on your own, read those information sources that I talked about. And if you're not here, watch this video where I talked about literally every place to get it, and then go find an internship. But literally, you can just go to LinkedIn and you can ask for it. But make sure, don't ever put like, I'm having a hard time getting hired, ever. See, when you do that, you're signaling the world that you're not hireable. Basically, show yourself as a solution provider. I'm here to help someone. For example, I'll give you a great example. There was a young Marine, US Marine, that basically retired, and he posted something that said, I'm retiring very soon. Is anybody out there looking for a hardworking, energetic Marine that can take directions, that just wants to start and help a company? I saw his post and I called him and I said that day I was doing a live boot camp and I had one extra slot in that live boot camp. And I called him and I said, Virgil, take my class. I'll give it to you for free. And he did. Then 2 weeks later, he had his first job. So what happened was his post that basically said, I'm here and I want to help you. Called me to reach out to him and say yes. Taught me how to train him how to interview in this boot camp and got him hired 2 weeks later. So use social media to get hired, but don't say I've been rejected, rejected, rejected. Don't put that. Show what you can do for someone else. That's the way I recommend doing it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And you can get hired that way too.
Yes.
John, I'll address that later. John Ojo. On today's group call. Great question, by the way.
Thanks a lot, Mike. I appreciate it.
You got it.
I'm glad you're feeling better too.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. I think what happens if you work 100 hours a week and then spend an additional 60 hours a week trying to make your $12,000 Mac do the job of a $1,500 PC, only to realize that it's not possible. And you don't sleep for 2 weeks, and then you come across a germ and you get sick. But I'm doing so much better, John. And we're no longer using that 2019 Mac Pro that's supposed to be able to do anything. They can't even run my displays without crashing.
No
Well,
success.
add on to that, Mike, that because of that 500 hours that you just tried shortchanging to 100 hours, that you don't even realize that you caught the germ. So somebody else has to point out, you're actually sick. You need to take a break.
Yeah, that's actually true, John. So literally, we're so committed to our students that Chris heard from me on Monday, or was it last Friday? I called him and I'm like, hey, Chris, and he's like, are you alive? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I was up all night, troubleshooting this, doing this. And he's like, Mike, you are really sick. And I'm like, but it's okay. This cough, this nasal congestion thing. And he's like, and I was like, okay, my wife did write me a prescription for an antibiotic. So, maybe I just need to actually get 5 hours of sleep one day to be okay. And what a difference a weekend has made. So, yeah, now I'm feeling so much better. And we have so many good, exciting things that are coming with this new tech that we got here. You won't believe the things that we're going to be releasing soon. So we're super excited about it. Brittany Kinsey, that's a really great question. So, should you focus on just one cert at a time to make sure you're completely focused? Well, actually, Brittany, you can come off mute if you like, and I can ask your background and then I can discuss it with you, or I can just answer your question directly. Tell me whichever is better for you. I want to give you the option since you're on Zoom. And of course, anybody on YouTube that wants to physically ask a question and pop onto Zoom, welcome. We love talking to you. So,
hello.
Hi, Brittany.
Fine. How are you?
Wonderful. And you?
Good.
So what's your background and your goals?
So my background is this is a completely new career. Previously, I was in probation, a probation officer for 5 years, and got married. We started a little home health care business. I did that for a while. Divorced now, so now it's like a whole new career. So I don't really have a tech background. I'm actually B-Bin that was on YouTube, just so you know.
Okay, gotcha, fantastic. So the first thing that I did as soon as I got married is I started a home health care agency. Because I was a nurse on my way to become a nurse practitioner. My wife was a nurse, and that was my first job. And dealing with the government and dealing with reimbursement was not something I enjoyed. So I got out of that real fast, became a nurse practitioner. So I understand. Now, the good news is the experience that you had from running that. I'm assuming you're interacting with patients. You were dealing with problems that needed to be solved, arguing with insurance companies for reimbursement and those kind of things. Would that be part of your everyday life for those years?
Well, we didn't take medical, but definitely dealing with, it was all private. So, but definitely dealing with people, right? So if something got, the biggest problem, biggest task was keeping staff on. So trying to make sure we're sweet talking them enough to come into work and different things like that, or who we can get in to call in an emergency. Actually it's a lot of work in that field, or filling in or making sure we're smoothing things over with the customer, or actually making sure our contracts are tight as well.
Okay,
So,
that, by the way, super, super important. All of those skills are 100% useful on the cloud. So, when I train people, to get to the second half of your question, by the way, all those skills are useful. Make sure you write them down and document them. The next question becomes how do you learn? So for example, what I do is I teach the cloud, networking, and security all at the same time. And the reason I do this is it's impossible to work on the cloud if you don't know the network. And anything you design on the cloud, if you don't understand security, is going to be a disaster. And that's why there's millions of hacks every day on the cloud. And that's why 16% of all hacks are related to misconfigured S3 buckets, because people don't even know what they're configuring. They're just configuring. So I would say do one certification exam at a time, but make sure you're training everything at the same time. So with the students in my program, typically speaking, within a month, we're looking for them to finish the Certified Solution Architect Associate. Within 3 months of our program, finish the Certified Solution Architect Professional. And while they're still doing that, they're still learning about the cloud, they're still learning about the network, they're still learning about security in the data center. And then as soon as you do straight that associate and the professional, skip that cloud practitioner. There's no point to doing it. It doesn't teach you anything that's not covered in the Certified Solution Architect Associate. And so save yourself the 2 months, get hired sooner, get paid more, and straight to the associate, straight to the professional. And then literally speaking after that, get that thing in the industry you want, maybe a networking one, maybe a security one. If you tell me what your goals and desires are most, then I can kind of guide you as well.
Well, I was going to focus on the networking part. I figure that would be probably the most helpful, especially since I don't come from an IT background, making sure I can get the basics down, the infrastructure down.
Good.
Over the security part. But that's why I wasn't sure, because I was like, okay, should I focus completely on getting this cloud done within the first 30 days? And I know you have videos throughout the week, and I was like, I don't know if I would be able to follow them as well. I know some basic things about cloud. I don't know all the very small detailed things and how you design them and all that. So I was like, maybe I need to focus on that first and then get back to the video. So that's why I was
so we do the design thing. So for example, what we're doing today in the class is we're actually taking one of the beginning of the class we're doing today is we're taking one of the students and we're actually going to fix his resume live. We noticed when he submitted his resume for a review, he did a good job on a lot of things, but there's certain patterns that we've seen. When I see 1,000 resumes, I typically see the same problem on about 850 of them. So we're going to be working on his resume to show how to take that first cloud architect job and modify the resume. After that, today we're going to do introductory things. We'll design something simple, and for rare occasions, I'll have my students configure it like I'm going to do today. But we do the designs end to end. So, the reason we work our designs, and you can ask some of the people that are in our class here. For example, Arun, who just posted, he took the Google Professional Cloud Architect, like the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional equivalent. He did it within a month in our training program. So,
oh, sweet, awesome.
And that's the same as the Certified Solution Architect Professional, but actually a harder exam. So it's not, the challenge is not doing the exam, the challenge is learning. And so what we do is we basically take it and break it down module by module by module to make it pretty simple. Now, I'm not going to say people aren't overwhelmed for the first 2 weeks. A lot of times they are. And I tell everybody, understand you may be overwhelmed for the first 2 weeks. About 4 weeks later, it's normal to you. And about 12 to 14 weeks later, people call me and say, I'm getting bored. Now, that's the happiest day in my life when a student says, I'm getting bored. And I say, okay, you got bored. We just designed a cloud solution that has 20,000 remote locations, 40,000 subnets, 100,000 employees, 15,000 servers, 2 petabytes of data, and you're bored. Congratulations, let's go get you hired. So that's kind of the goal of the plan for the plan.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I'm not there at all, but I'm gonna get there. Perfect.
You'll get there. Make it clear. Figure out exactly what you want, learn the cloud, learn the network, get both certifications, but also learn them as well. And whatever you want to do, you'll be fine.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, next question is from Tyrone. Yes, you are in South Africa. I figured you were. I thought you were one of the South African Tyrones I work with. So Africa is a different story. And what I mean by Africa being a different story, it has so many highly educated people that are there. And right now, because what's going on with the world, there's so much tech investment with the cloud inside of Africa. And I see Africa as basically what could be potentially a major market in the future. So here are the markets that I see that are really expanding and quickly. Nigeria, Cameroon, and South Africa, as evidenced by the fact that I have over 70 Nigerian students and over 50 Cameroonian students and a bunch in South Africa. But what's going on is you're seeing this massive technology expansion. AWS is coming into some of these places, as are other cloud providers. So now you've got this. So you've got lots of investment coming in. You've got, generally speaking, cheap real estate compared to the rest of the world. Africa, if people can get it, get access to it, has an incredible amount of natural resources. For example, look at the power that can be generated out of the field that could come from places like Nigeria. So there's a lot of investment coming in on cloud. Now, for people in the US and the UK and other places, we're migrating to the cloud because it's a little bit cheaper long-term, because it's simpler. In Africa, the cloud is a totally different story. There's less technology infrastructure there in general than other parts of the world. Less, not none, but less. So the opportunity to go to the cloud and not have to buy anything, because means are typically a little limited, even though there's lots of wealth in certain places, basically to be able to buy a system without purchasing anything first and getting a discount on your first year, because AWS or the cloud providers will generally give you a big discount in the first year. It enables it for more people and small businesses to start being online and operating. So I think in South Africa, Nigeria, and Cameroon, it's getting there. Now, I got to tell you, I'm getting calls now every day from Zimbabwe, Ghana, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Somalia, Gabon, Benin, just to name a few. And that's coming because there's this much actual investment going on. So I see Africa as a big market moving forward. It's a place that we focus heavily on by giving away so much free training, initially in the forms of certified solution architect, associate professional, and advanced networking, and providing free ebooks. And I, like just this weekend, I was speaking to the Wind Fun Iron group in Cameroon, a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful group, people banding together to help each other. So I think there's a lot more going on in Africa than in other parts of the world right now. It just seems to be a lot of development. So Tyrone, I hope I answered your question there. Who else has a question?
Hi, Michael.
Hello.
Actually, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
Yeah. This is Gaurav from India. Actually, I'm a database administrator.
Okay.
I'm working as a database administrator from last 5 years. While being a DBA, I came across a lot of stuff which caught my eye and which actually inspired me to get into this cloud architect field and all. So my question to you is, yeah, I do have a experience in database administration, but as far as cloud architecture is concerned, will employers consider me? I mean, since I don't have any expertise in this field, and I have just 5 years of experience, so will they consider me, or I have to do anything else and all? I'm ready to learn things, and actually I've started learning things, and it's really interesting, and I just want to go into this path.
Look, I think it's a lot easier than you think. If you do the right training, you can be hired. If you had no tech background whatsoever, if you used to clean houses in 6 to 8 months, we could get you into tech jobs. So realistically speaking, coming from a software background is highly helpful. So what do we do with people like you? You said you have a big data background, right? Big database background?
It's traditional RDB VMS, not just one database, actually Oracle, MySQL, and SQL Server.
Even better. So if you've got a database background, here's how I would build a portfolio around you. You don't have to do this, but I would first make sure you learn all the architecture skills that we're talking about. Again, this is not covered in the Certified Solution Architect Professional. That's only 10%. So I would build those architecture skills through the architectural training methods that we described, either in our program or outside of our program, first and foremost. Then you've got to have those business skills, ROI modeling and the such. So then you have to have executive presence, executive communication skills, train your emotional intelligence, train your interview skills and presentation skills. We've got to get you to the point that the employer doesn't see lack of experience, they just see consulting professional. Then what I would typically do is I would get that certified solution architect professional. I would probably marry that with a deep, like professional level database certification, if you like databases. And then I would be a cloud architect that focuses on databases, and that would give you both a skill and a competitive advantage to raise your salary. So that would be the plan that I would go with. Now, if you wanted to do a different kind of architecture, we could train that easy, but I like to leverage people's current strengths, and that would be a big help to you.
Yeah, thanks. That cleared a lot of things, Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Don't worry. I mean, that's enough of a background, but it's just learning the network in the data center as opposed to software. So Tyrone asked, is cross-country selling possible? Well, Tyrone, here's what my days used to be like. As an architect when I worked for Cisco. First thing I did is I started my day in Florida. I would fly to California, give some executive briefings to some people. Then I would go fly to the UK, for example, and close a big deal after a presentation. Then I would go to Dubai and close a big deal. Then I'd go to Australia and close a big deal. Then I'd go to Hong Kong and close a big deal. Then I'd stop back in Dubai or maybe and close another deal. And then I would go back to Europe and close a deal. So yes, cross-country selling is completely possible, and pretty much everybody's doing it. Who else has questions? Okay, it's 11 o'clock. So would anybody on Zoom like a call back from me? If anybody on Zoom would like a call back from me, private message me, or you can private message me in the bottom window, or you can call our number at, oops. And Chris, if you can post that in YouTube, since for some reason I'm not logged in as me yet and can't seem to figure out how to post it into that. As to get all my passwords on my new computer. Okay, so Mentor, I'd love to speak with you. Just please send me a private message. I'll take down your phone number and I'll call you after this call. In the Phoenix area, I take it. Okay, fantastic. I'll give you a call as soon as we're done today. Let's see what else I need to do. Let me find anybody else want to call back from me? I've seen 2 so far. Okay. So anyone else have any questions for me? Brittany, I'm so happy to be able to help. We do anything we possibly can for this to try and help, and this is something that means a lot for us. Any other questions from YouTube or LinkedIn? Got that message from my good friend, and yes, look forward to speaking up with you later. Any other questions for me? Okay, well, Tyrone, you know, that's the good thing with things like this. They are exciting and scary all at the same time. Something that I learned when I was younger, dream big, and then do one step at a time. Get from point A to point B. There were some Navy SEALs that I knew very well, and they were describing buds or the way they were training, and then they say, here's how you survive something that's very challenging. You eat an elephant one bite at a time. Now, I love elephants, and I won't be eating any elephants, but the point is manageable steps. Set specific, measurable, achievable, results-oriented, time-based goals. Build your long-term plan, and inside of your plan, like we hope with our students, have multiple short-term plans to go from step 1 to step 2 to step 3. Become great, and Tyrone, you will have more options than you can imagine, no matter where you're at in the world. Huge demand for cloud computing professionals, and basically speaking, where we're at right now is there's just no one that can do the job. So if there's no further questions, I will start calling people back. If there's any more questions, I want to give you guys one last opportunity for questions. Okay, well then, Everyone, it's been really wonderful to see you. Chris, you can close down the YouTube live stream, and I will then close down the, after you do that, we'll close down the Zoom session.